ORCHID'S Bloom by Michael Yichao. Jing breathed deep. The scent of orchid petals wafted on the air, carried by the breeze that danced through the open doors. Outside, bamboos swayed in the wind, their clatter a soft underscore highlighted by the twittering of birdsong. A small smile flitted over Jing's face as the sweet taste of spring danced just off the tip of her tongue. She sighed and stood, and weathered hand grasping the bamboo cane beside her, and tapped her way across the room. A thousand familiar creaks and groans of the treehouse surrounded her. Sandaled feet carried her from window to window as she opened each shutter with practiced, steady hands. Some petals drifted in as she did so, sweeping past her with a quiet rustle. She didn't mind. After all, they were the treehouse's namesake. A few stray petals scattered indoors brought her small joys and called to mind sweeter memories of bygone times. Sounds of footsteps drew to her attention back towards the main entrance, unexpected, as it was still early in the season for travellers in these parts. For a moment, Jing's breath caught in her chest, the muted taps of cloth shoes on stone, the whisper of loose clothing. Could it be? But no. The cadence was wrong, the stride too long. A patient smile replaced fleeing disappointment on Jing's features. She leaned into her cane, stood up straighter, and faced the door, feeling the warm sun on her face. "Hello, Omar," a voice called from the path. The honorific surprised Jing, strong, clear as it carried across the entryway, and faintly familiar, though Jing could not immediately place from where or when she knew it. Perhaps a voice she had not heard for many years, or perhaps just a trick of faded memory. "Welcome, traveller," she called in response. The creak of age in her own tones never failed to catch her by surprise. How quickly the years danced by, how time settled and clung heavily to bone and tissue, its gravel and weight inescapable. "Seeking a respite from the road?" she asked. "Indeed," the voice replied. "Please, come in," Jing said. She turned towards the back room as she heard the traveller enter. The scrape of a bench, the faint clatter of metal on wood, an armed wanderer, from the sound, likely a swordsman, blade at his side. Her practised hands picked up a small teapot, filled it with fresh water from the urn, and set it on the hearth. It wasn't unusual for travellers to be openly armed in this part of Ionia. Indeed, an unarmed traveller would have signalled a potential for greater danger, hidden daggers, or a mage, or perhaps someone well protected enough not to need weapons themselves. Far more unusual was that the traveller was alone. Once, long ago, the trio saw many guests passing through, but in the years following the Noxian invasion of Ionia, the paths that crossed near the treehouse saw fewer and fewer travellers. Caution and mistrust, as well as a rising threat of bandits and aggressive factions that rose in reaction to the war, meant folks who braved these particular roads. Yet in spite of this, Jing still opened the treehouse at every season, steadfast in a devotion. Only time, care, and patience could restore the balance and broken trust. And here was a lone traveller, though more likely an exception than a sign of restored tranquillity. His voice sounded road-weary, Yet he greeted Jing with the dialect of this region. Jing's hand hovered over the tea leaves. She passed over the traditional blend she served and opted instead for a white tea, primarily composed of the exelon, the gossamer flower, obscure to most but favoured by the villagers that dotted this part of Ionia. The whisper of the wind, the crackle of the hearth, the whistle of boiling water. She assembled the tea service quickly and returned back to the room, tray in one hand, cane in the other. If it weren't for the traveller's faint breath, Jing would have thought he had left. Yet Jing sensed his meditative stillness, radiating a subtle, quiet calm. With a bit of focus, she could also see the faint outline of his spiritual presence. She crossed to him and set the tray down at his table. Tea is served. Many thanks, Omar. The pouring of water, a fragrant bloom, deep inhale, a surprised, then satisfied sign. Jing smiled. The orchids bloom early this year, she said, taking a seat at a nearby table. The exolan trees too, the traveller replied. So he does know the flower by name. Jing nodded. Not quite the season when they are expected. An unannounced surprise. Unannounced arrivals can create quite a hassle, the traveller opened. Or being unexpected delights, Jing held a cane in her lap. Shifting winds often carry many treasures to the doorstep. Some strays bring no delight. The traveller's words came as a muttered breath, steeped in far more bitterness than the tea. Jing raised an eyebrow at the acrid bite, the lingering aftertaste, the thin film of regret over his words. Hard for the petal in the wind to judge his past in the gale, she remarked. The traveller says nothing. Jing stood and stretched. Ah, please forgive an old woman for prattling on about nature. Could I get you some food, perhaps? Is it just you here, Omar? The traveller asked. The traveller's inquiry prickled Jing's sense of caution, but the words were spoken with kindness, and even more so than before. She felt certain she knew that voice. However, the memory still eluded her, and itched just out of her reach. My helpers are not set to arrive for another 3 days or so, she replied. Technically, you're the first customer of the season. I am honoured. Jing heard the smile in his words. The delight is all mine, Jing replied. What winds are sweeping you through these roads? Returning home, or leaving? A brief pause. Neither, I'm afraid. The levity evaporated from his voice. A fool has no home. Jing considered this for a moment. How very dark and serious of you, she finally replied. She heard the surprised stutter and flabbergasted chuckle that escaped the traveller and suppressed the satisfied grin that threatened to overtake her. I think I will bring you some kiwi fruit. That always helped my son soak up all the solemnness whenever he got too melancholy. Jing again walked towards the back room, leaving the traveller to his thoughts. The quiet tap, tap, tap of her cane, opening the cellar door, down old rickety stairs, pretending the creaking was all the wood and not all the bones. Wrinkled hands found the kiwi tucked away in the cool. Fingers danced on the thick skin, ears listening for the hollow song of ripeness. Back up the stairs, a kitchen knife, slicing through, peeling, cubing, as she had many times before. The new voices reached her before she finished. Bawdy, loud, laughter, but empty of mirth. Jing wiped her hands on her apron, carried the bowl of fruit out. Several others had joined the traveller. Well, join perhaps was a strong word. They sat at a certain table, a raucous bunch, 4, 5 voices, the dull clatter of weapons thrown carelessly down, an orchestrated performance meant to intimidate, boots thudding on the table as their wearers leaned back in their seats. The wind has indeed brought many strange and unexpected surprises today. Jing headed to the traveller, setting down the fruit. His hand met hers as she took the bowl. "Thank you, Oma." Oh! Can we get some service here, or what?" A brutish woman's voice cut the traveller off. "You're welcome," Jing replied, ignoring the interruption. "Anything else I could get for you?" "You deaf, old woman!" the voice called out. The room fell quiet. Clearly, the woman shouting led these newcomers, or at least spoke for them. Jing continued to ignore her. "Anything else?" "I am well, Oma," the traveller replied. His voice was a spring, coiling with tension. Jing frowned. May there be no need for it to find release. Finally, she turned and approached the rowdy newcomers. The tap, tap, tap of her cane punctured the strained silence. She smiled as she reached their table. "Welcome, travellers. What you got to drink?" the leader's voice growled. "At this tea house we have tea," Jing says. The sound of spitting. "Nothing stronger?" "Black tea," Jing replied. She swore she could hear the traveller smile behind her. "Tea it is," the leader muttered. Jing bowed slightly, then walked towards the back room. Quite an unexpected day, she thought. When she returned, tea service in her hand, the room was again quiet of voices, but the rustle of the newcomers gave them away. Awkward scratches, adjustments of clothing, nervous sways, little coughs, strained, waiting. Jing sighed, fairly certain of what was to come. At least it seemed the traveller had left. Jing no longer heard his breath from the far table. Sure enough, as she approached, a sudden pft sounded as one of the gang shifted a foot out to trip her. Jing stumbled forward before catching herself, but the teapot shifted on the tray, and she heard a few drops slosh onto the table. Immediately, the figures leaped up. "You spilled hot tea on me, oaf!" a young man's voice shouted. Jing suppressed the urge to roll her eyes at the performative anger. "Careless fool," another says. "My apologies," Jing says, with a slight bow of her head. Jing heard the leader step in, felt her lean close, hot breath breathing down. "You hurt, Bran?" she says. "How you going to repay that?" Jing turned to face the leader, her face impassive. "This seems like a lot of effort to get one free pot of tea." "Insolent relic," the leader snarled. Clatter as hands found weapons, a din as the group pressed closer. Jing's grip tightened on her cane. "Insolence does indeed fill this house, but it does not pour forth from Oma." Jing turned, surprised. The traveller had not left. His voice rang out, clarion, from his seat. Yet Jing had not heard a single sound, nor felt his presence at all. Just a moment ago, a master stillness. "Who is this man?" "This doesn't concern you, wanderer," the leader snarled. "Lest you wish to expand your stay here permanently, I encourage you to walk away." Jing sighed again. She felt several gazes turn back on her. "You must be new at this, my child," she said to the woman. "To tell a wandering swordsman to walk away? All but guarantees he stays." She is not wrong. Amusement laced the tension in the traveller's voice. "At the same time, I must agree with my other guests, young man," Jing said, turning to the traveller. "Oh?" the traveller said. A rough hand grasped Jing's shirt and pulled her around. "Oi! Don't ignore us!" the leader fumed. The metallic shining of drawn swords rang out around her. From the traveller's table she heard a much softer "shing." A blade, loosened ever so slightly from its tie. One does not manage a tea house by oneself this many years without seeing a few exciting days, Jing said, still turning her head towards the traveller. If you stepped away, you'd be doing this old man a favour. I said, do not ignore me. Flecks of spittle flew across Jing's face as the leader snarled. Sorry, my child. You were saying? Jing gave the woman a pleasant smile. New plan. You come with us. The leader turned to go, pulling Jing with her, the gang around her already moving towards the door. But Jing did not budge. The leader jerked back, unable to move Jing. Jing heard her mutter in surprise, felt the woman's grip adjust and tighten on her shirt, felt a hand seize her arm, felt the leader again try to pull her, and again fail to move. I'm so sorry, my child, but I cannot leave. Jing shook her head sadly. You see, I am waiting for someone. Other hands grasped her and pulled, muscles straining. Jing deepened her breath, focusing motes of spiritual power to her legs, strengthening her stance. She remained frozen, immovable against the grunts of effort. Cut her legs. He only said bring her alive, not well, panted the leader. Two of the gang approached, and that's when Jing felt, almost before she heard, the traveller dash into motion. A gust of wind cut through the crowd. Jing felt the breeze of the two thrusts slide deftly by her, followed by the delayed howls of their recipients. The metallic smell of blood washed over her. At the same time, Jing raised her cane, bringing it crashing against the three closest bodies to her, hard enough to hear bruising cracks and the snaps of a fractured rib. She spun inward towards the traveller, her stance keeping her feet grounded on the floor, gliding in flowing arcs as her grip shifted on her cane to hold it as a short staff. The manoeuvre took mere seconds, but left the five attackers spread around the two in the middle, battered and bruised. Impressive swordplay, unimpressive listening skills, Jing admonished. She felt the traveller shrug. Apologies, Omar. Before her, one of the gang let out a scream and charged. Jing scoffed. How undisciplined, to give away his one advantage before his attack. She fled with an easy parry using her cane, leveraged a gentle shift to send his momentum careening past, and followed through with a casual spin leading to smack across his rear. Behind her, she heard heavy strides as three of the others lunged towards the traveller. Jing listened as the traveller's footstep patterned like rain. He danced between his foes, mobile in his stance, the song of the blade in constant flow as it glanced off their assailants, weapons and open light grazes in flesh. Well, this is indeed an unexpected delight, Jing says as she blocked blows from the two attackers. Do you often find joy in attempted kidnappings? The traveller asked. Not every day an old lady gets to stretch her limbs, Jing said, much less with such a natural with the blade. You honour me, the traveller says. Jing brought her bamboo cane cracking across a kneecap and heard a foe fall with a stifled cry. I haven't heard footwork such as yours in many seasons, she remarked. And your blade sings quite a unique song. I am but a humble student before Omar, the traveller deferred. Quit prattling! The leader's voice cut through their conversation as her sword cut through the air with her lunge. Noisy storms rattled the shutters, demanding attention. Jing sidestepped, then followed on a feint with her cane. But gentle rains are more likely to inspire the poet seated inside. What does that even mean? Growled the leader as she swung a blade to parry. In the resilient opening, Jing shifted her stance inside the leader's reach. "It means you're loud," Jing said, bringing her weapon down to rap the leader on the head. "And that you should consider being less loud," she concluded. The woman stumbled back 2 steps, cursing. Jing leaned her weight back, shifting into an empty stance, cane held low. She listened to the soft groans around her. One would-be attacker moaned from the floor. 2 more were scrabbling to their feet. The woman and the last attacker breathed heavily in front of her. "I'm a little concerned, Omar," the traveller says. "Oh? If they do not desist soon, I worry my blade will spill blood in your lovely treehouse." Jing heard the stranger's stance shift, heard the steel in his voice. "My sword style is far less cordial than Omar's staff. It seeks to end conversation rather than extend them." Jing nodded, impressed from seeing a handful of exchanges, all while sparring with his own foes. This traveller had correctly identified the defensive nature of her style and strikes, then let her know his observation, while obfuscating it with a threat and warning to their opponents. "Who is this traveller?" "Arrogant fool," the leader snarled. "We kill you first, then we take her." The leader muttered some brief incantation, and suddenly the temperature in the room plummeted. At the same time, Jing heard the traveller adjust the grip to his weapon. Whatever is happening isn't good. Jing took a breath, centered inward, and opened her mind's eye. Before her bloomed a range of vibrant colours as she peered into the spirit realm. Tendrils of spiritual energy tangled into every living thing, each pulsating with its own rhythm and flow. Next to her, the traveller blossomed into a view, a wild swirl of focused power and harnessed wind. Jing's jaw clenched in recognition. Of course, I'm a fool for not realising it earlier, but it was her opponents that made her blood run cold. The energy of the 4 remaining assailants turned light blue as their stances shifted. The spiritual energy from their forms extended through their swords, igniting their weapon with the soft glow of elemental frost. The 4 advanced, their feet never fully leaving the ground. Their swords shifted to chest height. Their stance, the formation they took. "That is my technique." "Who sent you?" Jing asked, already knowing the answer. "Bayo Lan requests your audience," the leader sneered. Jin's grip on her staff tightened. "Tell my son if he wishes to see me, he must return home." The leader laughed, cruel, mocking. "You will soon get to explain to him in person why you made this so difficult." Jing sighed. "I see. My son has not returned, but his anger and his folly have." The leader snarled at the insult. The 4 attacked. Jing blocked the first stroke with her cane. Immediately, eyes formed and clung to her weapon. The second assailant struck for her exposed side, and though she twisted to evade, the aura of shocking cold robbed her of her breath. Besides her, she saw the other 2 press the traveller hard, swords simmering with their frost technique. They moved her footwork, decent mastery, strong form, but the use of bladed weapons and the aggression gambits of their strikes divided from her teachings. Jing felt a bitter twinge in her chest. "How far have you meandered off the path, my son?" Jing continued to parry and block, feeling her weapon grow heavier and slower as each strike sent more cold through her. Beside her, Jing felt the traveller dodge and evade, clearly aware from the first parry that stopping blows with his blade slowly sapped his energy and heat. Her spiritual side also revealed him drawing his own power, the wind surrounding him sharpening with every movement. "He's building towards something big," Jing realised. "I'd better end this first," Jing thought, "lest he cut through half my tea house." Breathing out, she dropped her spiritual sight. Breathing in, she drew upon her own magic. Spiraling out from her, ice crystals encrusted all surfaces at a miraculous pace. The temperature within the teahouse plummeted. With a spin, she gripped her cane with both hands near one end. She heard the assailants' frantic steps as they all charged her, trying to stop her from finishing her move. Smart, but too slow. Jing brought her cane down on the floor with force. Seize! From the epicenter of where her cane struck, sheets of ice burst forth with a roar, engulfing everyone and everything before her. Silence. Stillness. Jing broke her cane free of the ice. She set it back down on the floor and leaned on it, catching her breath. I am getting old, she thought. That should not have winded me like it did. I apologize, Oma, the traveller says beside her. Jing took satisfaction in the slight chatter of teeth that accompanied his words. I should have trusted you when you requested I leave, he said. Clearly, you did not need my meddling. Only a fool would deign to make demands of where the wind would go. Jing's words broke short and curt. An uncomfortable silence followed. The traveller started to respond, but that was when Jing heard the ice crack. She turned and flattered her spirit's sight just as the ice before her shattered. Shards exploding outward, Jing stared, shocked, as a blur of a blue aura dashed towards her, tinged black by a growing heart of shadow. The leader let out an inhuman guttural growl, and Jing felt the sword tip pierce her abdomen, pouring bitter cold into her body before she could even raise a cane. Hasagi! A whirlwind blasted her assailants back, sending a gale crashing against the ice. Frozen debris cascaded out the front door of the tea house as the leader bounced once, twice on the ground, then finally lay still. Jing raised a hand to her stomach and felt the wet of blood. She stumbled to one knee, cane slipping from her other hand and clattering on the ground. Immediately, the traveller swooped to her side. Oh ma, you are injured, he said, one hand under her arm, the other on her back. Jing held up a hand. I will be fine. The cut was not deep. She pulled away from the traveller's assistance, clutching her shirt to the wound to staunch the bleeding. She drew her other hand in a circular motion before her chest, coaxing the cold magic creeping through her veins out of her body. I was slow, the traveller said, voice tinged with concern. I almost failed you. Jing shook her head. Always blaming yourself. You haven't changed one bit, Yasuo. Jing heard the traveller straighten slowly to standing. I suppose the wind technique gave me away. Jing let loose a singular laugh. I'm a bit embarrassed it took this long for me to identify Elder Solomond's star pupil. Even after all these years, you're still quite famous in these parts. Jing released the pressure from her wound. It appeared the bleeding had almost stopped, though her shirt was surely ruined. A pity, she thought. It was one of my favourites. With a practised hand, Jing cast about and picked up a cane. Before her, she heard a tense shifting in Yasuo's stance, a soft clatter as he raised his sword. Oh, stop being so melodramatic. I'm not going to try to kill you, Jing said. She took her cane and tapped her way to a chair. Besides, I've heard you've been acquitted, exonerated, that a foreigner, an invader, was found guilty of his death. The guilt is still mine to bear. My negligence meant I was not there to protect him. Jing heard the raw pain in his voice. I could have saved him. Jing sighed. How arrogant of you to assume so. I could have tried. I should have been there. And instead, he is dead. And the stranger who also bore the wind technique, whose weapon he shattered, now shoulders the guilt that I should have prevented. For a disciple of air, taught to dance light upon the empty breath, You sure are eager to take on all the heaviest burdens, Jing said. So, here you are, Yasuo, the brooding wanderer, haunted by guilt, the leaf blown in the wind, the fool with no home. Will you continue running, denying your birthplace? Do you expect me to find peace somewhere? The traveller of anger edged into Yasuo's voice. I cannot forget my actions. I cannot deny my past. I would not ask you to do either, Jing said. She took a deep breath. I could not. I would be lying. Yasuo, if I told you that I harbour no resentment towards you, Elder Sorma was a close, dear friend. I knew many of his students well. I knew your brother well. For the first time, Jing heard Yasuo's breath lose its calm. She took her head, sadness gripping her heart. But you cannot journey forward to atonement if you cling to your past failings. Silence settled over the room. Jing stood and began shuffling towards the back room. What are you doing, Omar? Yasuo asked. Jing waved him off. Please, call me Jing. If I hear Omar one more time, I am in real danger of crumpling to dust before your very eyes, she said. Elder Jing, Yasuo began. Jing heaved a dramatic sigh. Jing, Yasuo amended. Jing turned back towards him. I'm grabbing my broom to start cleaning this mess. Jing gestured at her clothes. Also, I need to change out of this shirt. I'm sure it looks just dreadful. You look fine, Yasuo said. You're terrible at lying, Jing says. Yasuo walked towards Jing. I could help, he offered, with the cleaning. These are my responsibilities, Jing says, especially them. Jing gestured out across the teahouse. I need to thaw them out, wake them up, and send them back on their way. You're letting them go? Yasuo asked, incredulous. Well, not the one you cut with the wind, Jing said. She seems fairly dead from the 1,000 slashes you administered. But they tried to kidnap you. They are disciples of my son, Jing replied. Misguided as he, they all have lost their way. Yasuo spoke, his voice hard. Errant branches should be pruned, not nurtured. Jing raised an eyebrow, a surprising assessment from one many who call an errant branch. She continued, speaking over Yasuo's protest. I am the one responsible for my son walking away from the righteous path. You cannot blame yourself for the actions of your children, Yasuo says. Have you ever taken a pupil, Yasuo? Jing's voice tensed for the first time. Not as formally as such, but yes. Yasuo's reply came tentatively. If they strayed, would you not feel responsible? Would you not be responsible? Yasuo's silence was answer enough for Jing. Children, students, we love them even when they err. Perhaps most of all when they err. Jing's voice softened as he spoke. My son has lost his way. The Noxian war changed him, broke his heart, made him impatient and angry. Jing tapped her way back to Yasuo and turned his face up towards his. I have failed him as his teacher and as his mother. I waited for him to return home, hoping his broken heart would heal. But now it is clear that I must find him, speak with him, remind him of the path to balance. He sent these brutes to take you. Do you not worry that when you meet again, he would be consumed by malice? If we must first speak with staff and blade, then so be it. Jing patted Yasuo's shoulder. But you shouldn't waste your energy worrying about an old woman such as me. You have your whole life ahead of you, and plenty of your own demons to contend with. Jing turned her face towards the open teahouse door. breathed in the scent of orchids. These are uncertain times in Ionia. Self-reflection must be balanced with actions outside the self. Perhaps we both will find greater clarity within when we seek answers outside ourselves. A breeze again set the bamboo clattering. Tentative birdsong slowly returned, breaking the silence that had followed the fight. I do not know where to go next, Yasuo says. Soft and unspoken, but Jing heard the heartbreak beneath. You are a man of strength who knows the meaning of loss, Jing says. There are plenty of folks who lack both. Instead of drifting in the wind, perhaps you can harness it to lead you to those in need wherever that may be. Jing lifted her cane and gave a light tap on Yasuo's forehead. But for now, you should get out of my tea house. I have much cleaning to do. Jing listened as Yasuo stood and retired his blade to his side. Thank you, Jing, and thank you for the tea. It was nice to have a taste of home. Home is home, Jing replied. No matter past trespasses, nor how far you may roam. I hope your son realizes that, Yasuo says. Jing smiled. Bittersweet. I do as well.